Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. Thank you all for being here tonight. So for those of you who are here for the first time, we welcome you and we appreciate your participation. As you know, our meetings are now being held both virtually and in person. So I'd just like to take a moment and just read a little bit about how this meeting will proceed. Keep in mind that if you wish to sign up to speak, the way to do that is to visit bit.ly/virtual CC meetings. That's bit.ly/ virtual CC meetings. So to ensure a decorum, we ask you please abide by the following guidelines. Please refrain from any behavior that is disruptive, distractive, profane, or inhibits the meeting in any way. And while you are on the phone waiting for your opportunity to speak, please mute the meeting broadcast on whichever channel you are listening, and I will call on you when it is your turn to speak and also notify you when your time has expired. The city staff has automatically added speakers in the to listen only mode, and you will be unmuted to speak when recognized. Once you have completed speaking, you will be muted, and you can either hang up and exit the meeting or stick around with us and stay and watch the rest of the meeting. So we normally begin our meetings with a pledge of allegiance. So at this point, I'd like you all to please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd also like to take a moment and reflect upon Dawn Johnson, who was an employee of our city. We lost her on February 10th due to COVID-19. She was a member of our finance team. She passed away. She was very much our go-to expert in the area of emergency operations and was especially invaluable during storm operations. Dawn was nimble with the FEMA requirements and helped lead us successfully through the reimbursement process over the years. I'd just like to take a moment and I'll have this moment of silence on her behalf. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Dawn, for all the years you spent with our city, and it was very, very sad. Okay, so moving on. We have a couple of agenda announcements. CM2 Exhibit 7 listed in the memo has been added. There being nothing else, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes and the agenda?
Mayor, I have one question about the minutes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff or Chris, on the January 21 City Commission regular meeting minutes on page 13, there is a paragraph towards the bottom under R2 that says, in response to Vice Mayor Glassman's question, a specific time period for submission of additional project proposals was confirmed to be included in the resolution, but it was not included in the resolution. And then I went on to add the 21-day period. So that's a little unclear, that paragraph. It makes it sound like it was already included in the resolution.
Mayor, I can address that. You're correct, Vice Mayor. It is unclear. The sentence really wasn't finished. The resolution did include it, but it left it blank. So we can clean that up and make it per your request.
That'd be great. And I'm pleased to move the minutes in the agenda, Mayor.
Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. Please call the roll.
Mayor, I think we just need to call roll first, and then we'll call the roll on I don't think we called roll for the meeting. So
really,
for tonight's meeting, or we can do.
I'm so excited about Anthony Ginsberg that I just want to rush through this meeting. Okay, please call the roll to see who is in attendance.
Commissioner Moritas,
I was kind of waiting till Commissioner McKenzie's show. That was kind of my reason, but go ahead.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Not yet.
and Commissioner Sorensen,
Here.
Mayor Trentals.
Here. And thank you so much. So now may we have a motion and a second on the approval of the minutes and the agenda. Please call the roll.
And is the motion to do them as amended per?
As amended.
Okay. Commissioner McKenzie? Not present. Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman?
Yes.
Mayor Trentals.
Yes. And the minutes as amended on the agenda are now approved. So before we begin our meeting and start talking about agenda items, we often use this as an opportunity to recognize individuals or organizations who are of particular note in our community. And tonight, I have that special honor to be able to acknowledge the work of Mr. Anthony Ginsberg. And we have a proclamation, which I would like to share with all of you. So if I can please ask Mr. Ginsberg to please come in front here and join me in front of the dais. Stay right here. Great. So thank you, Anthony, for coming here tonight. Is the microphone on? Okay, we're good? All right. So tonight, it is my pleasure, but more my honor, to be able to present to you this proclamation from the Office of the Mayor of the City of Fort Lauderdale. And this is a proclamation being presented to Mr. Anthony Ginsberg in recognition of a unique homeless civic engagement initiative, which you created, and I'd like to tell the folks what that is all about. So whereas in 2020, Fort Lauderdale resident Anthony Ginsberg set off on a first of its kind nonpartisan effort in the city of Fort Lauderdale to engage the homeless citizenry in fulfilling their civic duty and encouraging them to exercise their right to vote in the November 2020 general election. And how did you do that? Well, I'm about to tell you. So whereas over the course of a 10-month period, in spite of all else that you were doing, 6 of which occurred at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Anthony Ginsberg remained steadfast in his mission to compassionately connect with and educate as many members of the homeless community as possible on the importance of civic engagement. And whereas with his personalized teachings on the urgency of keeping one's voter registration information current and education about Broward County's vote by mail process, Anthony Ginsberg was able to individually engage with over 200 members of the homeless community. And whereas through his understanding of the value of personal and repetitive contact, Anthony Ginsberg worked to successfully register 173 homeless citizens to vote in the November 2020 general election. And finally, as mayor, and as well as on behalf of the city commissioners of the city of Fort Lauderdale, we recognize Anthony Ginsberg for his dedicated work with the homeless community and thank him for his tireless service to preserving the sanctity of American democracy. Now, therefore, we as the city commissioners of the city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, do hereby proclaim today, February 16, 2021, as Anthony Ginsberg Day in the city of Fort Lauderdale, signed by myself, Mayor Dean Trentalis. Mr. Ginsberg, congratulations. So we'll take a picture. Let me get my mask. Hold on. Could you hand me my mask? I have one right here. Thank you. I've had my shots, but. Okay, here we go. Okay. Let me get rid of this. Mr. Ginsberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me through my mask? Yes, okay. I've never done this before. Thank you. Thank you to the commissioners, virtually and present in person. I simply would like to say, I realize, of course, you have a busy agenda ahead of you this evening, so just a profound thank you for recognizing the intention of what I have been doing, which, as you have pointed out, is about the total inclusion in the electoral process of all citizens, and with particular reference to our homeless fellow citizens in Broward County. And for that, I thank you very much. Also, I simply wanted to say that, you know, I've been doing volunteer work like this for really a very short period of time. And there's one thing I've definitely learned, and it is that when we do our volunteer work, we do it individually, doing the things that are most meaningful to us. But it's the mutual support that we give each other that is a big factor in making the success, whatever success we individually may have. And so I wanted to recognize, therefore, all the people that have supported me, who are here in person tonight, and I think a few are online as well, and share this with them as well.
Well, thank you again. So I just want you to know that that effort did go noticed, and we really appreciate what you did. And we wish you to continue the work that you do in whatever level, whatever context that is, because our city is better for it. So thank you so much, and have a good night. You're welcome to stay the rest of the meeting, but if not, thank you for being here tonight. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Very good. Thank you so much. That was really nice. So at this point in our meeting is an opportunity for us to ask the public if they're interested in speaking on any of the consent agenda items. Okay, so what happens here is that we as a commission will vote on the consent agenda items all at once. If a commissioner wishes to pull an item and have that item discussed and voted on separately, I will ask each commissioner whether or not they want to pull such an item. At that time, a member of the public can speak on that item at that time. But if an item is not pulled, a member of the public is welcome to address and speak on a consent agenda item, any one of the items. And it will be at the beginning of this moment that we'll invite you to do so. So let's first find out if any member of the commission has any items they'd like to pull, and then we can determine whether or not a member of the public wishes to speak now or later at that time. So Commissioner Moritas, do you have any items you'd like to pull?
None, thank you.
None. Vice Mayor?
None, Mayor.
Commissioner McKenzie? Are you on
Since
the line?
Vice Mayor doesn't have any, I'm going to forego the 10 I was going to pull.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And Commissioner Sorensen?
CM4. Thanks.
4. Okay. All right. So other than CM4, I see that somebody's here to speak on CM1 and then CM2 just for people, just for persons who have questions. So other than that, CM1, let's go to CM1. This is a motion approving an event agreement for Fort Lauderdale Concourse. Mr. Gernert, you're here just to respond to questions. You have nothing else you'd like to say, correct? Are you online? He's just here for questions because I see he's associated with the event.
He is here.
Frank?
Just here for questions here.
Okay,
Mayor.
great. All right, so everyone else is just here for questions. So other than that, so Since no one else has really asked to speak, did anyone online raise their hand, see whether or not they wanted to speak on any consent agenda items?
There are no hands raised.
Okay. So may I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So move.
Okay, so
Second.
we're talking about all of them except CM4. So the motion's been made to approve all the consent agenda items except CM4. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and all the consent agenda items except CM4 were approved. CM4, Commissioner Sorensen.
Thanks, Mayor. Alan, just question for you as you know, and we've, I've mentioned my wife's the director of development for NSU Art Museum. So just want to check in terms of any conflict there for me, Alan.
I do not. No, you do not. There's no fiscal impact. It's a sponsorship to allow banner placement in the city. So there's no issues.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. Then, Mayor, I'll move that.
Okay, so CM4 has been moved. Do I hear a second? Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and CM4 is approved. So thank you, everybody. Anyone who is here on any of those items, you're welcome to leave, or if not, you're welcome to stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting like the rest of us. Moving on to R1, Resolution 1, Appointment of Board and Committee Members. Mr. Clerk, would you like to read the names?
For the upcoming meeting, March 2nd, we have one name brought forward on an individual appointment for the Economic Development Advisory Board by Commissioner Moritas, and that's William Feinberg. For tonight's resolution, Central City Redevelopment Advisory Board, Dennis Ulmer, nominated by Commissioner McKenzie. Ray Thrower, nominated by Vice Mayor Glassman. Cemetery System Board of Trustees, Avis Boyd, nominated by Commissioner McKenzie. Charter Revision Board, Dan Lindblade, nominated by Commissioner Moritas. Community Appearance Board, Michael Iannilis, nominated by Mayor Trentalis. And Miguel Wright, nominated by Mayor Trentalis. Fire Rescue Facilities Bond Issue Blue Ribbon Committee, Mark Booth, nominated by Commissioner Sorensen. Sustainability Advisory Board, Paxi Pastor, nominated by Commissioner Moritas. And that rounds it out, Mayor.
Okay. Any other additions or modifications to that reading? There being none, do I hear someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
The resolution has been introduced.
A resolution in the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, appointing or nominating, if applicable, board and committee members as set forth in the exhibit attached here to and made a part hereof. Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and those nominations are now approved. Thank you all for your willingness to give your time and your resources in connection with these boards. We really thank you for your commitment to our city. R2, a resolution waiving the competitive solicitation and selection processes contained in the procurement ordinance for procuring dredging services at George English Park. This is with Waterfront Property Services, LLC, DBA Gator Dredging, $214,780. Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
It's been introduced. Any questions? Commissioner Moritas, in your district, any questions?
Yeah. No, we discussed this last night. I discussed it with
Okay,
Raj.
let's dredge away.
So we're ready to go. And Raj, I know we were just confirming that the boat ramp, I believe that might be our only question. Will the boat ramp be closed for any portion of this project? I know the George English Lake should remain open.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. Commissioner Moritas, my intent is not to close any of the boat ramps for some flow reasons, but those details will work out once the contract is awarded. and we are going to work out the schematics in the pre-construction meeting. But my preference is to close it as a last resort, but that's not my preference at this time.
Okay, and just let us know if you do.
Absolutely. Once the pre-construction meeting is over, then we are going to set up a meeting. We'll involve your office such that everybody knows what is going to be done, where and how.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? The resolution has been introduced. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, waiving the competitive solicitation and selection processes contained in the City of Fort Lauderdale procurement ordinance for procuring dredging services to remove sediments deposited in George English Lake and providing for an effective date. Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the resolution is approved. R3 is a quasi judicial appeal of Planning and Zoning Board denial of a vacation of right-of-way application, a portion of Northeast 8th Street, Holman Automotive. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. The commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Commissioner Moritas, do you have any disclosures?
I do, Mayor. On February 9th, I met with Dina Gray and Bob Bamonte. That's it.
Okay. Vice Mayor Glassman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Site visit and also met with Dina Gray on Thursday, February 11th at 2 o'clock.
Okay, Commissioner McKenzie?
Met with the representatives and a site visit.
And Commissioner Sorensen?
Met with representatives.
Same here. I met with the representatives of the folks there, and I guess you say I had a site visit. I've been in the area many times.
Well, then you've had many site visits.
Yes.
You don't get a Mercedes service at
I don't wish to disclose.
BMW.
Okay, so we have one person here who signed to speak up, but I think it's just for questions that people may have in regards to this. Any questions of the party? Let's move to close public hearing.
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes. And public hearing is now closed. Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
Okay, so do we know what we're introducing here? You want to explain, Alan, what's going on?
Sure. This is an appeal from the Planning and Zoning Board's denial. And your standard of review is essentially the essential requirements of the law, whether the Planning and Zoning Board followed the correct law, in this case, the correct ULDR provisions, and whether there was competent substantial evidence to support their decision. I'm sorry.
So we're not doing the appeal.
No, you're determining whether there is sufficient competent substantial evidence to support the decision or whether they follow the right law. I would proffer that they did follow the right ULDR provision. It would be your determination as a commission as to whether there's competent substantial evidence to support their denial. And if you find that there is not, then you can go ahead and schedule a de novo hearing no later than 60 days.
Okay, so by introducing this resolution and voting in favor of it, you are stating to the Board of Adjustment that they did not have competent substantial evidence upon which to base their decision, and that we are going to now hear the case as a commission from the get-go, from the start, or what they call de novo, and listen to the petition of Holman Automotive Inc. with regard to this right-of-way vacation application. Everyone
Mayor, I
understand?
think it's the Planning and Zoning Board, not the Board of Adjustment.
Correct.
I stand corrected.
And there are two resolutions. One is the denial of the appeal, and the other, as you correctly stated, Mayor, was the one for the de novo hearing.
Right. So, okay, so it is it is the Planning and Zoning. I stand corrected. So does everyone understand that then? Okay, so the resolution has been introduced.
Can we just clarify, Mayor, which resolution is introduced? The resolution of denial of the polling P&Z or the resolution setting the de novo?
Well, we're going to first do,
Only introduce one of the two.
well, if we do,
Right.
if we do the setting up of the de novo hearing, doesn't that essentially, well, why don't you direct us, Alan? We have to
Well,
have two motions.
If you have discussion in regards to whether you really should make a determination as to whether there is a basis for a de novo hearing. So amongst your discussions, if you find that there is a basis, for example, that there is insufficient evidence on the record to demonstrate that the decision, that their denial, then you would have a basis for a de novo hearing, and then you could vote on that if somebody introduces that particular resolution. If you have discussion and you find that absolutely great decision, then whoever introduces it would introduce the resolution that denies the appeal.
Well, if the commission decides to approve a de novo hearing, do we have to articulate our bases for what? Do we have to
For denial.
upon
For
which-
denial.
Do we have to articulate the basis upon which we have made that decision, or can we just make?
You have to articulate, you would have to make a finding that either they didn't follow the correct law or that there's an absence of competent substantial evidence.
Right. So by voting for the resolution, don't we essentially state that without having to actually articulate which findings that were contrary to the essential requirements of law?
I guess you could argue that. Well, you can, I guess you can make that link, but I mean, for example, if the commission collectively believes that they don't know why there's a denial, they can't see in the record any facts to suggest why it should have been denied, that would be an absence of competent substantial evidence. And if that's what you believe, then a de novo hearing would be appropriate.
Right. I get that. But if we were to vote against the appeal, we are essentially saying that we agree with the Planning and Zoning Board and that they follow the essential requirements of law and that we're no longer going to consider a de novo hearing.
Correct.
But it sounds to me like this commission is prepared to move forward and approve the appeal, which is based on our finding that there was a departure from the essential requirements of law and that we're asking for a hearing. And there was no substantial competent evidence upon which they made the decision. So who introduced the resolution?
I did.
I introduced it. No, Ben introduced it. That's right. I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
You introduced it, and I'm going to ask that you agree that in your introduction of the resolution, you're stating that the Planning and Zoning Board failed to apply the essential requirements of law, and that there was I'm forgetting the phraseology.
Or lack of competence.
There was lack of competent substantial evidence upon which to make their finding. Is that not correct, Commissioner?
So agreed.
Okay, so you agree. Okay.
Oh,
So
we
we've
can
made
discuss this? Can we discuss it a little bit?
Mayor?
Can we discuss it also?
Yeah, we can
I'm not
discuss
quite
it.
ready to.
Yeah, we can discuss.
We shouldn't discuss it.
So that is the motion. That is the resolution.
Mayor, I have a question before we vote on that.
Well, Commissioner Moritas raised her hand first, and
Okay, sure. Of
she's
course.
sitting next to me, and I prefer to listen to her first. Okay,
No problem.
go ahead.
Are we going to hear anything from Ms. Gray, maybe explaining their position also?
We can do that.
Okay, so we can understand and process. It's kind of my understanding when I did meet with them that the Planning and Zoning Board wanted to see a site plan. And so I need to just have clarification for myself. Did they need to see a site plan in order for this to be approved by Planning and Zoning? Because if they didn't need to see a site plan, then I guess Planning and Zoning did not follow the intent of the law. And then therefore we could schedule. So when I listened to everything, it seemed like my understanding was, like I said, planning and zoning wanted to see a site plan. They didn't see it, so therefore they weren't ready to vote this forward. But maybe they didn't need to see it.
Alan,
We're gonna
One second.
we're gonna get some expert testimony here, Commissioner.
Dennis, tell us what happened.
Just wait till he's done now.
Oh, he's still trying to.
There you go. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Dennis Mealy, at East Broward Boulevard, on behalf of Holman Automotive.
Try to speak into the microphone a little bit better.
Is that?
I don't know. Is it?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can.
My name is Dennis Mealy, 200 East Broward Boulevard, on behalf of the applicant. My associate, Dina Gray, her 5 children and her husband are all at home with the coronavirus, so I'm taking her place tonight. And then to answer the commission, she's doing okay though. She just couldn't go out.
So the question is about site plan.
Yes. So there are 5 criteria for a road right-of-way vacation. Having a site plan is not one of them. So our contention is that to have had substantial competent evidence to deny, you have to have failed to meet one of those 5 criteria. So the main discussion at the Planning and Zoning Board was, well, we'd like to have a site plan when we're doing this. Unfortunately, that's not what the code calls for. There was one comment about one of the criteria. The first criterion is the right-of-way or other public place is no longer needed for public purposes. Someone did question that. You had expert testimony from your own Transportation and Mobility Department that were you to open 8th Street to vehicular traffic, it would be a dangerous intersection because you have 3 roads coming together at the exact same spot. So I think the only substantial competent evidence on the issue of whether it's needed for public purposes showed that it's not, because if you opened it, it would be a dangerous intersection. So we would hope that you would approve the resolution and allow us to come back and have the appeal heard. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner?
Is that my understanding? That is the main reason why planning and zoning did not approve this, is because they wanted to see the site planning?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you. You answered my question.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And there were definitely other reasons that were given. I actually watched that meeting and I read their minutes, but there were a couple of reasons. But so, Mayor, I have a question, and maybe it's also for our city attorney, because I agree with Commissioner Sorensen's motion to hold the de novo, but he's including both reasons, A and B: departure from essential requirements of law in the proceedings, or competent substantial evidence does not exist to support the decision. I believe that they did cover A, that there was not a departure from essential requirements of the law, but I'm in agreement with B, competent substantial evidence does not exist to support the decision. So I wouldn't know exactly how to vote on his motion because I agree with the intent, but I don't agree with the reasons given.
Well, it's essentially, it's one or the, you can have both or you can have just one. So based on what was just represented by the party, there's an argument, and I can't judge what's being said, but there's an argument that presumably the Planning and Zoning Board wanted a site plan, but correctly, that is not one of the criteria. So if they required a site plan and denied it because of a site plan, there would be a valid argument that they didn't follow the essential requirements of the law. So if that's the case, you could also make that finding. If you don't, again, you as a commission would have to work out what resolution and what you want to state therein. But as long as you have one or the other, you have justification for a de novo hearing. So whether it's the essential of the law, failure to follow, or you have a lack of competent substantial evidence, as long as you have one, then you have the ability to call for the de novo hearing.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
Can we use or in the
resolution
introduction, Alan?
You can. It's a little ambivalent, but at least, yes, as long as you have one, as long as it's clear that we have a finding of at least one, wouldn't want it to be interpreted as being we don't know, so we're just going to say or. But based on the record tonight, obviously there's an indication from either of you that you have a basis for either one of those categories.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, there being none. So, so Alan, is the resolution complete now?
I believe the record reflects the resolution that
Is it sufficient?
it's sufficient for you to call a de novo hearing based on the record.
Okay. Do we have to have a separate resolution calling for a de novo hearing?
You have one in the record that
So we'll do first that there was that they
you can state that the vice mayor believes there's a departure or that there was a lack of competent substantial evidence apparently, and then Commissioner Sorensen also believes there may be a departure from the essential requirements of the law. So on that basis, then
okay, please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida regarding the appeal of the Planning and Zoning Board's denial of the request of applicant Holman Automotive, Inc. to partially vacate a right-of-way retaining a non-exclusive utility, pedestrian walkway, and emergency vehicle access easement for a portion of Northeast 8th Street, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, making certain findings and setting a de novo hearing to consider the appeal before the City Commission at 6 p.m. March 16, 2021, and providing an effective date. Commissioner McKenzie.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman.
Yes.
Mayor Trentals.
Yes. So did that also include the setting of the de novo hearing?
yes, the resolution had already picked a date, March 16th.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. See you in March. R4. Okay, there are a number of people that have signed up to speak on this. This is a quasi-judicial resolution approving an amendment to site plan level 3 development permit to reduce the allocation of 297 downtown dwelling units, Riverwalk Residences of Las Olas, Riverwalk Plaza Associates LLC at 333 North New River Drive East. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. The commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Commissioner Moritas, do you have any disclosures?
I do. Meeting with neighbors, is that considered an expert opinion?
No.
Or no, just random? Okay, so let me go. So 825 Courtney Crush, which was last year. This year, January 12th, Courtney and clients.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On, let's see, met with Courtney Crush and clients on Thursday, January 28 at 3 o'clock. And that was the 2021. Also met Thursday, August 31st, 2020 at 3 p.m.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Met with the representatives.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Met with the representatives.
I met with the applicant and with Courtney Crush multiple times. And okay, so can I ask a couple questions? Courtney, can you come up here before we have the folks asked to speak?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Courtney Crush, and I have been sworn.
Great. Thank you for coming here tonight. So, you know, this project was originally approved based on it being an assisted living facility. And as I recall, there were some concerns at that time about one of which was regarding the parking requirement. And I believe this was an issue that even the vice mayor articulated when he was on the planning and zoning board at the time. And and it's my concern also now because you're converting it to regular housing and there's going to be less than one parking space per unit. I'm concerned that while the reduction in parking may have made sense as an assisted living facility because fewer people were anticipated even owning a car, how can we adjust this plan to allow for one parking space per unit as we go forward on this?
Mayor Trentalis, you are absolutely correct. The Riverwalk Residences was approved for 297 dwelling units. 192 of those units were traditional multifamily dwelling units. We had sought permission to operate 105 of them as a social service and had a number of parking spaces that was lower in reflection of the social service operation on a portion of those units. As you are aware, we're seeking to amend the conditions associated with the SSRF operation tonight, the generator and then a large fuel tank. That being said, as you know, there's no parking requirement in the downtown Rack City Center. However, as we had shared with our residential neighbors at the Water Garden condominium, it is our intention to submit a future amendment to the plan, which is in with the city right now. It's actually in with the building department to increase the number of parking spaces. We have an amenity deck on the 6th floor, which is contained within the parking podium. It's a double amenity deck, and we've evaluated that can be converted to parking spaces. The net result of both laying out the existing parking levels more efficiently with that additional conversion in the future of that deck will provide one parking space for every one of the dwelling units.
So you're saying that as a result of what you just said, there will be 297 parking spaces?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, very good. So I have a few people that have asked to speak, and why don't we let them do it? And then folks on the commission, I welcome your questions after people have spoken, but I just wanted to clear that up before we even got to first base here to know where we were going with this. Okay, so a number of people have signed up to speak, and I would ask you to please, I'm going to read 3 at a time so that people look forward to being called. First one is going to be Debbie Picker, followed by Gary Grayson, followed by Michael Wager.
And Mr. Mayor, we'll go ahead, if we could, and have the clerk swear them in since it's quasi-judicial hearing.
They haven't been sworn in?
I don't believe so, but the clerk can confirm.
So I'm going to read all the names, and I would ask you in the privacy of your own home, please raise your right hand, and you'll then be sworn in. Please acknowledge that you'll be doing this when you start to speak. Debbie Picker, Gary Grayson, Michael Wager, Sharon Miller, Carl Peterson, and Stan Eichelbaum. Those are the only people that I've signed up to speak. So if you could please raise your right hand so that the clerk can swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I do.
Yes.
Hey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Debbie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you swore yourself in, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you have 3 minutes to speak.
You ready?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Senior and assisted living would be the perfect use for this prime property. Many of the residents likely would forego driving. There's a big need for senior housing units in Broward east of 95. The development will fill a void in the neighborhood for active senior living. Quotes from Mr. Roy, developer of proposed Riverwalk Residences. The first submittal was by MSA Architects, who designed staff did not feel the proposal was appropriate for this location. Quote from Randall Robinson, City of Fort Lauderdale, Planner 3. P&Z does not see downtown rack projects unless there's a conditional use request. The conditional use is for a 42-story senior residence on 3/4 of an acre, adjacent to and 15 feet away from the 3rd Avenue Bridge, and 6 feet 2 inches from the property line it shares with Water Garden. Setbacks do not comply with the downtown master plan. Only 178 parking spaces are planned because the city's rationale is that many won't have cars. This project is providing only 15 guest spaces. No way could this project get built with those few spaces unless it had this use. The reason we required a complete traffic study is because their traffic impact statement stated that the 4-story building there generates 1/3 the number of trips as a 42-story building. Really? Emergency services and construction site management on that tight corner? Look what happened with the Icon. Quotes from Steve Glassman, Planning and Zoning. Approving the 333 project is my biggest regret as part of City Commission. Quoted from Dean Trentellis, City Commission at Savor Cinema. I confirm that should the developer wish to use the building for a different purpose, they would need to go through the required approval process again. Quote from Anthony Fajardo, Director of Sustainable Development. My point, City Commissioners, is that none of the quotes above, used as reasons for approval for a non-standard project on a 3/4 acre lot, remain true. How then do you continue to approve this? You are losing the trust of the voting public, as this is clearly a bait and switch. The very arguments used to gain approval for a project that does not conform to city standards are no longer part of the plan, but your approvals are. We are waiting for some explanation of this from our city officials. Some ideas are simply not good for the city. Ideas like the wave, the Alexan Tarpon, the AHF project would all have passed City Commission if not for the strong voices of the taxpayers. It's time to listen to the voters once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Grayson. Gary, are you there?
Yes, Mayor. The city clerk's office will play a file in lieu of my speaking.
Is it less than 3 minutes?
It is less than 3 minutes.
Okay. I think you may use up your 3 minutes with our technical difficulties here.
This change of use triggered a traffic study. The developer said an assisted living facility would have 1/3 the traffic of an apartment building. Now they say apartments have half of an ALF. If they switch it back, traffic will vanish when it drives by. They still only have 0.6 parking spots per unit. The justification was because ALF residents don't drive. Who's going to stay here now with almost half of the units with no parking? Short-term visitors. This could easily turn into a huge Airbnb-like building. Let the downtown hotels handle that. They're good at it. Steve Glassman at P&Z said no way this project gets built with those few parking places unless it had this use as an ALF. The first architect pulled out because he didn't feel the building was appropriate for the location. Wow. When the second architect showed this picture, I asked him if he had ever designed a tower this close to another one. He said no, not even close to this close. I thought it was possible he had not taken the channeling effects building code into account. The second architect is off the project too. Maybe this is why the wind study the developer agreed to give us and didn't contain no issues because it didn't include actual pressure and velocity values. After CPP Wind obtained the raw data, Dr. Danoon determined the new building would cause a hurricane code failure for our building. The pressure increase is massive with high winds. This is the first time someone saw the wind study. Our agreement specifically said the wind study was on our building, not their building. The study did have what everyone calls the oh my God pictures. The reason it doesn't look like there's any spacing between these buildings is because there isn't. Someone at P&Z asked for the wind study. He was handed a memo instead with no pictures. I showed a heavy construction contractor where the building was going. He said we'll be lucky if the pool doesn't crack in half. Haven't seen him in a while. I guess he moved. The developer offered to do the vibration monitoring for us. No thanks. Our building is an unwilling partner in this experiment of extremely close, high-impact tower construction in disregard of hurricane code, both unprecedented in the entire state as far as I know. Everything that is wrong with this building is because the lot's too small. No other developer here has attempted something like this for good reason. A DDA developer told me, wrong building, wrong place. Something appropriate for that small lot should go there. All of this information was withheld or unknown on the first vote. Does the third architect and other new participants know? Why is everyone bailing on this project? Who's going to be left holding the bag? Almost 4 years ago, it was approved because of its use. I urged the commission to deny this amendment that's nothing but an end runaround. If it wouldn't have been approved in its entirety then, it shouldn't be approved piecemeal now. Commission voted down Alexan and AHF, and neither are in the same universe as bad as this. R4 is a house of cards built on a foundation of false statements and predetermined engineering reports. Don't reward this. It sets a horrible precedent. Please vote it down.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Grayson. So Michael Wager, followed by Sharon Miller, followed by Carl Peterson.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. That prior presentation's a tough act to follow, but I'll touch on a few points here. This ill-conceived project has been like a dark cloud over New River Drive for the better part of 4 years. The building is clearly too large for the 3/4 acre lot, and the project never should have been approved. The wind study, which the approval was supposedly contingent on, identified significant issues, as you just heard in Gary's presentation. The guidelines for setbacks were ignored. Why spend the time, the effort, and the taxpayer money developing guidelines if they're to be ignored whenever it's convenient or because of a personal relationship? The parking and traffic, pleased to hear that the increase in the parking spots is in the plans. Would rather see that clearly documented. But New River Drive is a traffic jam already. We have the added valet parking of Salt 7 to the valet parking of the Lobster Bar. We have the Icon, the Alluvion, and the Water Garden already here. I think even actually one parking space per unit is too few. Most of the people I know in the Water Garden have 2 cars. The original traffic study indicated the prior 4-story building or current 4-story building generated 329 daily trips. Now this 42-story building is going to generate 594 trips. I mean, the math just doesn't add up on that. And something that should be looked at in the future is who actually engages and pays for this traffic study. The neighborhood compatibility. How is a 42-story, 295-unit structure that violates setback guidelines all the way around compatible with any neighborhood? The change in usage does not solve any problems. It just creates different ones. The planned building is simply too large for the lot. I respectfully ask the mayor and the commissioners to deny this request. Since the building has been vacant and is becoming an eyesore, hopefully the owner and developer can come back with a proposal very soon that provides them with a reasonable return, which they should be entitled to, while at the same time is size appropriate for the parcel and not detrimental to the aesthetics and infrastructure of the neighborhood and the city. I sat in one of these meetings and I believe I heard the reason for going ahead with this project was because it was tugging at somebody's heartstrings. Since the planned use has changed, the heartstrings matter should be off the table as well. Lastly, if the city believes that our owners support this effort, I can assure you the vast majority do not. We don't need to get into that at this moment, but that is a fact. A significant amount of our building has turned over since the project was announced, and now a second exodus has begun. I really think the lack of speakers this evening is just apathy with the situation, with what's gone on with the building for 4 years and our elected officials. So I really encourage you to deny this request. Let's get something reasonable on the lot. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share my perspective.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. Sharon Miller, followed by Carl Peterson, followed by Stan Eichelbaum. Is Sharon there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'm here to voice my opposition to the proposed development at 333 North New River Drive East. I'm an owner and a full-time resident in downtown Fort Lauderdale. It is my understanding that the developer of the property is seeking an amendment to the site plan, and the amendment must be reviewed and approved by the City Commission before the project can move forward. The amendment for the change of use from a senior living facility to an apartment building. Imagine the number of professional, skilled, and long-term high-paying jobs that a senior living facility would have created for our community. Almost 4 years ago, we were told that this development would solve a much-needed void in our city for an upscale senior adult housing and assisted living facility. I was very excited about the unique set of dynamics of this proposed building. After all, the prospect of remaining in the city that you love as time and life change was certainly an inviting idea. Heck, even the developer's attorney, Courtney, said that she was moving in and that I would want to live in this wonderful building. That was then. What is now being proposed is something totally different. I wonder, would the commission still have approved just another rental building of this magnitude on 3/4 of an acre on one of the most historic and iconic streets of our city, the Riverwalk? Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Carl Peterson, followed by Stan Eichelbaum. Mr. Peterson, are you there?
I'm here.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. This is Carl Peterson. I'm here as a part of the project team and to answer any questions should they arise. So I have nothing further at this moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stand by. Mr. Eichelbaum, Stan Eichelbaum, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clearly.
Okay. Speaking on behalf of Flags residents throughout the city, recent happenings on New River Drive exemplify the concerns of all. So many of us were wooed to Fort Lauderdale based on its great potential. We elect officials to quite simply set policy to protect and improve livability of a potentially great community. Our concern is who's setting policy and are they targeted at the protect and improve goals? Tonight, you've been advised by the city attorney that a proposed development's change from assisted living, elder memory care, and independent living to market rate apartments is not sufficient change to require reapplication. The city attorney has not opined on the subject as staff advisor, but rather has acted as authoritative judge, as we are finding so many staff are. We have elected you as a body to set policy, not city staff. We have sent the paper trails of the city attorney to professionals on this matter in other cities, and there's real challenge that this is, in fact, a change of use. It's further documented as such by going back to the original approval when you, Mayor Trentalis, then commissioner, first was against the project, then said it was a unique project that fulfilled the intent and goals of the downtown master plan. Commissioner Glassman, Vice Mayor, is on record with a very long email of objection to the project originally that states it is unique and different. Again, a unique use, not a normal market rate housing use. There are issues of traffic, parking, staging, and other questionings to be assessed because it is a different project than initially proposed. In fact, the head of sustainable development, Anthony Fajardo, said such conversion would require reapplication to both myself and at least one other downtown resident several months ago. We aren't pro or con the project, but do want the ship righted on commission ensuring correctness of process and policy that protect and improve the community. In recent months, staff has been by amendment permitted the building of an architecturally non-compatible, alcohol-purveying permanent structure without posting for community comment. Has approved addition of yet another traffic disrupting valet on a street already encumbered by 7 other valets, one of which has been in violation of 6 codes of covenant virtually every day of their several years of operation. We are over 2 years ago presented to commission concerns about our neighborhood and received favorable response about our diligence in providing information to commission. The city manager promised over 4 years ago correction of many of these issues. We urge you tonight not to negate the project or approve it, but rather go the normal process. This is a change of proposal, and send it back either to planning and zoning or to Board of Adjustments, defer it. And let's go through a process to make sure this is compatible to the neighborhood. We want development in the city, but we want development that is smart development, that works together and doesn't contort the community. Many of us moved here, me inclusive, as a former planner of many major cities around the country, advisory to them. And I have developer friends, architects coming into the city who have lauded what I'm living with, saying, what a great place. Now, my main activity is when I walk the neighborhood, residents saying, what the hell's going on here? This is getting really, really bad. There are too many contortions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eichelbaum.
Thank you.
Past the 3 minutes, thank you. We still live in a great place and we'll continue to live in a great place. So no one else has signed up to speak. Does anyone have any? Well, I want to just close public hearing right now. Will someone please move to close public hearing?
So move.
It's been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and public hearing is now closed. So Ms. Crush is up here to respond to any questions. I think the developer's also here. So we'll start with Commissioner Moritas. Do you have any questions to ask?
Not at this point. I'm going to go ahead and listen and finish up here at the end.
Okay. Vice Mayor, do you have any questions to ask?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just wanted to set the record straight with some of the things because my name was used a few times this evening. And I think Ms. Picker had a wrong quote. She said that I regretted my vote on this. I think that was the mayor, not me, that said that. I know I didn't say that. I was actually on the losing side of a 4-3 vote at Planning and Zoning in 2017. I objected to the project then for a variety of reasons. And actually, although, again, my words are a little bit misconstrued, one of my main reasons was I didn't think that the assisted living memory care component of this building fit the downtown master plan and for the activation of the downtown master plan, because many people would probably never even leave the building. So I didn't see how this really fit the intent of the downtown master plan. And contrary to what some people said this evening, this commission never did vote on the AHF project. And also I would take exception with the claim that if not for the public, the commission would have passed the quote AHF project, the Alexan Tarpon, and I think there was one more. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the commission did what it did because not just the public input, because although that's what the commissioners decided and the mayor decided at that time. So I just wanted to set that record straight. My main question is for Alan, because here's where I'm struggling with this. I don't even know why this actually came back to us, because originally the original project only came to planning and zoning because of the conditional use of the memory care and the assisted living. Now this is coming back to us. I'm not exactly sure if it even needed to. I want to hear our city attorney talk to us about change of use and what exactly is in front of us this evening with regards to this project.
Vice Mayor, I'll go ahead and start, and I may have to pull in Mr. Fajardo for some of it. But initially, at first, it's not a change of use, and we can get into that. It is before you because it is an administrative amendment that essentially the staff cannot on its own provide, and it has to go to the last body, approving body, which is the City Commission. What's before you tonight is an amendment essentially to back in 2017, this site plan, this project was approved. That's done. There's no changing that. Tonight is an amendment essentially on the removal of the generator room, the fuel tank, and there's a request also to remove references to the SSRF. The SSRF is a conditional use, which they're not obligated. I heard the first speaker seemingly say that if you deny the amendment tonight, that they have to build an SSRF. They don't under our code because it's in a conditional use that will ultimately expire. They don't have to exercise that conditional use. So before you tonight is actually that amendment. If it's denied, then they can proceed with their existing site plan and the dwelling units that were allocated to them back in 2017. And since they're not really modifying the site plan to the point where you would have a change of use or have a new review process, they can just go ahead and build and as they are without an SSRF. If you grant the amendment, then they can proceed under the amendment. So all that's before you tonight is an amendment. You cannot go back and revisit the site plan itself or any components of it that are not before you this evening.
Okay, so, all right, help me further with this. So if we approve the amendment, then they're able to remove the generator room. They won't have the SSRF component. That conditional use is out the window. But what you just said was very interesting. You said if we don't approve the amendment in front of us, they could just build this project and leave all that stuff out anyway?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, so that's very confusing. So then why is this then in front of us?
I can have, because the request for the amendment was made, I can ask Mr. Fajardo to pipe in and perhaps he can articulate it better than I can.
Mr. Fajardo is making his way across the chambers. He's
Thank you.
He's halfway there. He's almost to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, you missed your play-by-play calling.
I'm telling you.
Play-by-play.
Thank you, Mr. Fajardo.
Thank you for that, Mayor. Anthony Fajardo, City of Fort Lauderdale. So when we look at anything for an amendment to an existing approved site plan, we have to go to a section of our code for those amendments. It lists specifically what staff has the authority to do, what I have the authority to do as the director, and then beyond those thresholds, what we have to do in terms of getting the amendment through the process. This particular type of amendment isn't listed under staff's authority or mine, which is why we brought it forward to you. Our authority kind of lies around, we refer to it colloquially as the 5% rule, because that's what the code says, 5% change, typically to increase setbacks, lower height, that type of thing. For this, it's not listed, so we put it in front of the City Commission as the last approving body to look at the plan and offer and approve the previous plans the way they were presented.
Vice Mayor, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, staff had muted me, I'm sorry. So Anthony, let's just say that this commission does not approve this very specific amendment that's before us this evening. We do not approve it. And the applicant just moves forward and builds the building and it doesn't have the SSRF and doesn't have the generator room. So does that matter to you?
Well, from the perspective of the process, yes, it would matter. I mean, we would look at the plans and what they have approved originally should be what they construct when they go to building permitting.
Okay, because also with this amendment, I believe that we're actually only losing, what, 2 units from 297 to 295, I think, something like that?
That's correct.
Because of the way the beds were configured for the memory care and the assisted living?
That's correct.
Okay, so Mayor, I understand. Again, I just wanted to reiterate that from when I read this, and I know that folks want us to just basically eliminate the site plan. But from what I'm hearing is that's not really what's in front of us this evening. And I don't want people to be confused with, what we're doing as a commission or setting policy with basically just also following the law as it's laid out by our staff to us. I just think that's a very important distinction. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, don't go away just yet, because we all know there's already an approved project. So that's the floor, the basis that we're now moving forward from. So so explain again exactly what this vote will approve, if you could. What is this vote going to approve?
You want me to?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, so the request to amend the plans is associated with those components that are related directly to the SSRF.
Right, so that goes away.
So that would go away if this was approved.
Even if it wasn't approved, it could still go away.
Yes, they were from.
In other words, they're not obligated to do an SSRF.
In terms of operating an SSRF,
right,
it would expire. It wouldn't be valid.
So
they could still build it because they got the units allocated. So the conversion rate of the units goes back to the 297. Well, in this case, 295 because we've given back the 2 units. So it'd just be the operation of the building as an SSRF.
Right. So they already have the units.
Correct.
It's just how they choose to operate.
Correct.
And that was a conditional use to begin with. So
yes,
if they withdraw that use, then whether we vote for or against tonight has nothing to do with SSRF. You're operating it as an SSRF.
Essentially, yes.
Okay. What else? What else are we approving tonight?
That is it. Just those components related to the plans that they need to remove or that they're requesting to remove per this amendment, which is the generator room, the fuel tank, and I think some references to memory care.
And Mr. Fajardo, correct me if I'm wrong, but the requirements for the generator and the fuel tank are state mandated if you run an SSRF. If there is no SSRF, that requirement is not there from the state.
That is correct. There was a lot of discussion that I recall when this project appeared before the Planning and Zoning Board and the City Commission about that. The state had just passed the legislation about the requirement for generators. And so there are no conditions on this project. All those conditions are related to state statute anyway.
Okay, so if this were voted down, just being hypothetical here, they don't have to build a generator room, do they?
If it's shown on the plans, we would look for it on the building permitting set.
But I mean, it's not it's only a requirement now because they asked for it in order to comply with state law requiring them to have it as an SSRF. But as a regular, I mean, they can go ahead and still build with the generator.
They could
not operate as an SSRF.
That's correct.
Okay. But tonight,
may I have?
Wait.
I'm sorry.
Hold on a second. But tonight, they've indicated to us that they're actually going to add parking spaces through an amendment to the site plan after tonight. So in fact, we're getting a better building than what we approved in the last commission. Okay. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Anthony, in the original site plan, there were 8 hotel units as part of the project. Have those gone away or are they still there?
I believe they're gone. The applicant's telling me that they're no longer there.
Okay, so how come that didn't have to be mentioned anywhere?
I'm sorry?
How come that did not have to be mentioned anywhere as part of an amendment if we're just eliminating 8 hotel units?
Well, hotel in the downtown is a permitted use. The City Commission wouldn't have to allocate any units against that. So there is no conversion rate. So the SSRF, for instance, you get 2 SSRF units for every residential unit. For a hotel, there is no conversion factor like that.
Okay, so it just doesn't matter.
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner McKenzie, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, but if we vote it down, hypothetically, they still can do what they want to do. And even if it's on the plan, now I'm talking from a contractor perspective, you can get to that point and do a submission application for revision of the original plans and omit those items anyway, right? Anthony?
You're right. Yes. And it would not have to come back to us.
Right. Right. So I'm just talking out loud.
Okay. And thinking out loud, I know. Okay. Commissioner Sorensen, do you have any questions?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Anthony, I got a question for you.
Yes, Commissioner.
So I wasn't part of the commission when this was coming through. Just for context, what was some of the folks mentioned some variances given? Give me a little bit of background on the original site plan and any variances or allowances.
So what they're probably referring to is the tower separation between the proposed building and the neighboring water garden tower. The downtown master plan states that in the previous version and the current version that was just passed by the city commission, that there should be a 60-foot separation between towers, but that 30 feet should be maintained on either side. Water Garden, unfortunately, was constructed prior to the adoption of the downtown master plan, so their tower was further to the west, closer than 30 feet to their property line. So the tower on the residences side on 333, the applicant side, was adjusted to maintain the access along the west side of where the bridge is and moved over slightly. So it's not quite at 30 feet. I don't have the exact dimension in front of me, but I think that's what they are referring to. It's not a variance, as we've had these discussions before in the downtown. The prior version of the downtown master plan had flexibility built into it. It was more of an intent-driven document. But the purpose is that you couldn't really anticipate every situation on every site. So at the time, it was felt that it was better to adjust the tower over a little bit so that you could get more separation from the bridge and have that pedestrian experience maintained. And it resulted in the tower being closer than 60 feet to the neighboring water garden. But that was a combination of the water garden already being constructed closer to the property line than we would typically permit today.
So how far is the water garden tower to the property line? Do you know off the top of your head how close or far away the water garden building is from the property line? Is it 30 feet?
It's not. I could find out, but I don't remember.
Is it less than 30 feet?
It's less than 30 feet.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
And Anthony, just point of interest, the setback, and by setback, I mean, I don't know if I'm using my terms right, but distance from the property line to the podium of the 333?
I don't know the exact dimension to the podium, but there is no side setback requirement for the podium in the downtown. So we typically just
can be as close as possible. Okay. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Okay. So thank you, Anthony. Courtney, can you, I want to follow up on a couple of questions. So another concern that folks in the neighborhood wanted to find out about was what reassurances can you give us that this is not going to be turned into like a vacation rental building? You heard that comment.
Feedback. I did hear that.
Any thoughts on that?
And I also want to share with Ms. Miller, I still need somewhere to live when I'm 92. So hopefully we'll have some more luxury apartments downtown that can take care of me. With respect to what is proposed at Riverwalk Residences, John Francois has partnered with Micah Khan at Gables Residential. Gables nationally has non-transient or permanent luxury in some cases, in some market rate. This is intended as a luxury residential apartment. When you register that way with the state and pay taxes accordingly, a minimum lease In the apartment units would be 7 months. Micah has shared with us that Gables has minimum leases of 12 months. And in fact, in some of its luxury apartments, which this would be, actually financially incentivizes tenants to stay 18 to 24 months. So this is geared toward a lifestyle renter. And there is absolutely no intention to operate this on a short-term basis. In fact, Gables actually prohibits any of its tenants from utilizing Airbnb, in addition to doing background checks and monitoring that very, very, very carefully, because that is absolutely not what they want.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Ms. Crush?
May I clarify something, Mayor?
Absolutely, go ahead.
With respect to the site plan and Commissioner Sorensen's question on the tower orientation, Commissioner, I also wanted to point out that the master plan suggests that a tower project its narrowest side towards the river. In working with our neighbors at Water Garden, the reason the tower is oriented with its wider side along the river and pulled to the north, because there is a concern of views. So I think when there's a discussion about how that tower came to be, had it had the skinny side facing the river, it would have extended much further south. And that was something that was objectionable at the time. So I just wanted to clarify that,
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm sorry,
Thank you.
Mayor, actually, for the request, the reason that we believe we're here is in discussing with your city staff the proposal to remove the generator and the oversized fuel tank, as Mr. Fajardo said, and I know he consulted with the city attorney and city attorneys to not have to build the generator. It seemed as if this amendment that didn't have an appropriate slot was something that we needed to go through. We think it makes all the sense in the world not to build an oversized generator.
Are you going to have a generator?
I was advised that we needed your permission to not do so. It was the physical components on the site plan because they had been part of the package. So I just wanted to share with you and the commissioners. That's why I understood we were here, was to request to remove those physical, in some cases, oversized components.
Okay. All right. So in a way, I have to be honest with you. I think that the public was a little was going on the impression that tonight's request was more than it really is, and I think that tonight has been an opportunity for everyone to truly understand what's going on here tonight, because even if we voted against this, they could pretty much go ahead and do their market rate rental unit building. They don't have to add the additional parking, which they now have agreed to do so. And I don't know what we would have accomplished as a commission in trying to refine this building in a way that would in any way meet the expectations of those that spoke tonight from Water Garden and other areas. So I understand the consternation that some people have expressed from the community, but it is an approved building, and these just seem like tweaks to the building, not any significant modifications. There will be one significant modification for the better, which is more parking. So we appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I know that this commission is going to be asked to make an amendment to the downtown master plan in the near future, which would require one parking space per unit in all future structures, which I think is only sensible. And I hope the commission will approve that once it comes before us. I have no further comments or questions. Anybody else have any further comments or questions? Someone like to make a motion?
There's actually two resolutions before you, one denying, one approving.
Okay, so would someone like to make a resolution? Would someone like to introduce a resolution? Let's start with that. District Commissioner 4. Who's that? Ben Sorensen?
Thank you, Mayor. Sure, I'll introduce motion to approve.
So there's So Commissioner Sorensen has introduced a resolution to approve the item. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving an amendment to a site plan level 3 development permit for the mixed-use project known as Riverwalk Residences of Las Olas, located at 333 North New River Drive East, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in a RAC-CC zoning district. Commissioner McKenzie.
Just wanted to get a clarification, Mayor. What are we voting on again?
So we're voting to approve the amendment to site plan level 3, which allows them to not have to have the generator and not have to have the oversized fuel tank and not have to make reference to it as an SSRF building.
And if we voted against it, they still can do it, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, yes.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that everyone's flying under the impression that we're like, could stop all this. And it's just not, it's not.
Okay.
All right.
Flip of a coin, yes.
Yeah, yes.
That's a flip of a coin, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Sorensen.
No.
It's the same thing.
Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman.
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the resolution is approved. We move on to public hearing 1. Resolution granting a waiver of limitations at 321 North Birch Road, Penthouse 1, Slip 2 for the installation of a no-profile boat lift. We have a few people who have signed up to speak, but I think they're all representatives of the applicant. Is Kat Bongrazzoni a part of the applicant? Kat has signed up to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're here on behalf of the applicant, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So other than that, Steve Tilbrook is here, Tyler Chappelle, I think both of them, they're also here to speak on behalf of the applicant. So anybody else wish to speak on this? Do I have to close public hearing, Alan? Public hearing. Okay, so can I hear a motion to close public hearing?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, it's been a motion to close public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman.
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, public hearing is now closed on PH1. Would someone like to move the item?
Moved.
It's been moved. The resolution's been moved. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, pursuant to Unified Land Development Regulations, Section 47-19.3E of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale, granting a waiver of limitations of ULDR Section 47-19.3C to permit Robert J. Berard and Mary K. Berard, husband and wife, installation and use of 1 plus or minus 50 feet times 20 feet plus or minus 1,000 square foot, no profile boat lift that will extend a maximum of 55 feet from the property line into the waters of the intercoastal waterway, such property being located at 321 North Birch Road, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and more particularly described below, subject to certain terms and conditions, repealing any and all parts of resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for an effective date. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the resolution is approved. PH2, it's a public hearing, resolution granting a waiver of limitations at 301 North Birch Road, Unit 8S, for the installation of a 4-post boat lift, requesting deferment to March 2nd. Someone like to move to defer to March 2nd?
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and that item has been defer to March 2nd, page 3. This is a quasi-judicial resolution approving historic designation as an archaeological site, property commonly known as Rivermont, located at 1016 Waverly Road, Lauderdale, Florida. Historic Preservation Board, case number HPD 2004. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. Commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them part of the record. Do you have any disclosures, Commissioner?
I do not.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Site visit, met with Sailboat Bend neighborhood staff and also Colliers.
Commissioner McKenzie?
None.
Commissioner Sorensen? Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Did you have any?
Yes.
Do you have any
Yes.
disclosures?
Yes.
No? Disclosures.
Yes. Yes.
What are they?
What are the disclosures?
Do you have any disclosures?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you. Brooke Berkowitz, March 16th.
Okay.
Year.
What year?
Here.
Year.
All right.
Yes.
I don't recall having any meetings with anybody related to this issue on that site. So anyway, moving on. No one has signed up to speak. The city owns the property. So let's move to close public hearing. Do I hear a motion to close public hearing?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Mayor Trent House.
Yes. Someone like to introduce the resolution approving the historic designation of it as an archaeological site.
Introduced.
Introduced. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a historic designation of an archaeological site of the property commonly known as Rivermont, located at 1016 Waverly Road, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in accordance with Section 47-24.11.c.7 of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida Unified Land Development Regulations, providing for conflicts and providing for an effective date. Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman.
Chris, before I vote, where are we on the nomination with the National Register of Historic Places for this site?
I'm going to have to go to Trish if she's
Well,
up.
just vote so we can move on with this.
I'll be happy to vote yes. Thank you, Mayor. And I like your French pronunciation of the site, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anthony can answer that question.
And I vote yes, and the resolution is approved. Now you can answer the question.
Thank you, Mayor.
So Vice Mayor Anthony Fajardo, the Tricia and staff are working with the Fort Lauderdale Historical Society on the application. We're trying to get it to the May application deadline for the state. The state would then transmit it to for consideration on the National Register.
Excellent. So the May for the state, and then when does the National Register take place?
I believe it's towards the end of the year. I can get it.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, if we're pushing for May with the state, that'll be great because they have to send it over to the National Trust. So thank you very much, Anthony. This is great work. Thank you. Terrific.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to OFR 1, these are ordinances of first reading. An ordinance dissolving the Beach Redevelopment Advisory Board and amending section 2-219 parens A of the Code of Ordinances.
Wow.
This is a milestone event.
Yes, Shirley Smith is still going to the meetings, by the way, even though they're not even taking place.
Stop it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do I hear a motion? Would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
Okay. I want to thank everybody all these years who have participated in this this board. This has been a game changer of a board, having guided us through many decisions with regard to the expenditure and the application of the CRA funds on the beach. It has now sunsetted, and just so many people were engaged and helped make the beach, continue to make the beach the wonderful place that it is as we see it today. But some of those projects are still ongoing, and hopefully we'll see their conclusion within the next 12 to 24 months. So I just want to personally thank everybody, my appointees over the years, and everyone else who participated. Thank you so much for your efforts. If you could please call the roll.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, providing for the dissolution of the Beach Redevelopment Board, amending Section 2-219A of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale to remove reference to the Beach Redevelopment Board, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing for an effective date. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman?
Yes, and you're right, Mayor. And I just wanted to say ditto to your words, a tremendous group of residents over the years. So I also wanted to say thank you to all those folks.
Mayor Trentel?
Yes. And the Beach Redevelopment Advisory Board is now part of our wonderful history. OFR 2, we have first reading of an ordinance amending the noise ordinance relating to construction of large or complex projects, exemption for time to comply, establishing an alternative approval process to the City Commission for the approval and revocation of special permits. We have one person who signed up to speak. I personally would rather not burden with the city manager with this right to exempt the time requirements. I think that should always be a City Commission decision. What do you folks think?
Can I offer
Mayor, we have,
presentation on the, because I've got some changes I'd like to recommend.
Do you?
For what's presented. So if you just give me a couple minutes and then we'll see where we go from there. So as presented and what we have today already in the ordinance is I have the authority to issue a 30-day permit and then one 15-day extension for a total of 45 days. I don't have any authority beyond that. We
keep you on a short list.
I know. So we were looking at some of the larger projects, particularly the convention center project is the one that really triggered us to look at this and say that project just can't get done in 45 days. And there may be good cause to allow them to continue, but that should be a determination of the policy centers and not necessarily the city manager. So what we put in here was large and complex projects. And I guess that has maybe gone and become too broad, too expansive. And so in hearing the feedback that I've heard in the last couple of days and in speaking with the commission, I would offer up, and I'll just read it here real quick, that what is in, if you're following along with what was presented in the published material, that we would amend the section that's being added to state as follows. The City Commission may authorize additional special permit extensions of time beyond the authority of the city manager inserted for public projects through adoption of a resolution upon a showing of good cause, period. And the rest of the sentence deleted. New sentence, the City Commission may revoke such special permit if it is found that a violation of the special permit has occurred, period.
Why just public projects? Why not private projects?
I think we were just trying, and I could defer to Alan, we have to have some kind of, something we can apply across the board without picking winners.
Right. You'd have to apply it either to all projects.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So
Well,
it should be to all projects.
You
not
could
just-
have the city commission could have discretion to do with that with all projects if they so choose. If
Right.
they so choose. Yeah. We'd have to just again leave it as is, I guess.
So all construct, not just public. So it could be
It
projects.
would be the
public.
same. It would be the same read, except the three words that were suggested to be added for public projects would be not added.
Or you could just say public or private. Okay.
Yep. If that is the pleasure.
Or I mean, or you if you want to leave it as large or complex projects, or did you want to just do that for larger complex projects or any project at all?
Right. So why don't we just do that?
I think this needs to be narrowly tailored towards the convention center.
No. It was triggered because of the convention center, but I think it makes good policy for the commission to reserve onto itself the right to make any changes should that occur, regardless of what the project.
Right, but you're saying open it up to all projects.
Well, the commission has the right to do whatever it wants with regard to all projects. They can extend the hours for construction if someone applies to us to want to start earlier or end later. Remember when FDOT came to us for the tunnel top? Of course.
Because right now, the way your ordinance is written, the city manager has the authority for his extension for providing those exceptions. However, the city commission does not. The reason we're amending it is to provide additional authority over what the city manager has been provided for you all to make determinations on particular projects where he's extended or he's exhausted his authority. So right now, if you want it, first, we wouldn't want to tailor an ordinance just for one project, number one. Number two, you don't currently have the authority to do that under your existing ordinance. So that's why we're amending.
So it's giving us more authority, Ben, as a commission.
Right, but it's also maintaining the city manager's authority.
Well, the city manager has.
Yes, correct. It's the city manager's authority remains the same, but there are some projects that come up. Convention Center is a good example where he's exceeded his authority, or he hasn't exceeded. He doesn't want to exceed his authority. So the ordinance needs to be amended to allow you, the city commission, to go ahead and do that above and beyond what the city manager can do.
So this does not increase Chris's authority.
Correct.
It does not.
Correct.
It only increases our ability to grant, by exception, increased operating hours.
Correct.
Correct.
By majority vote.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Any questions?
Are we keeping it public and private? And is it only for large complex projects or?
I'd say if that's the direction the commission wants to go, then let's just leave it as presented, as published, and ignore my recommended changes.
Okay.
No, we're not leaving it just as public. We want public and private.
Correct. So then you would go back to what was published. Forget that I even offered up.
Okay. All right.
So we're voting on what we have in front of us.
That's correct. I'll withdraw any comments I had on
Okay.
making it.
Okay. Sandy Swanson has signed up to speak on this item. Is Sandy there? Sandy? Calling Sandy Swanson.
Sandy has been recognized. Star 6, please. Star 6, Sandy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening, Sandy.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening. I probably misread some of the issues in this whole ordinance. However, I'm very concerned about you allowing contractors to work extended hours, earlier in the morning until later at night on commercial projects, increasing their allowance of times they have on Sundays, et cetera. In particular, because I am a resident of the Water Garden, and you've just approved the final steps for this project that will now begin. Okay, recognizing we're on a half-mile long street. There are nearly 2,000 units here and 3 bars. I mean, you cannot allow, you have to exclude our street until the 333 is built, because then there's no space left to build after that. But gosh, guys, you cannot have our developer going, oh, we want to extend the hours because we need to get finished quicker, and suddenly we've got, concrete pouring at, midnight or something. So I'm very emotional about it, of course, but in your consideration, would you at least find a way to exclude 333 North New River Drive from being allowed to operate outside standard building hours or construction hours, which we have previously agreed to in an agreement with the developer. That's all I'm asking. Will somebody, Ben Sorensen, will you stand up for us and don't make our lives miserable for the next 4 years while we wait for this thing to be built? Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. In response to that, Sandy, right now the law is that they have to operate and construct within the standard hours. There'd have to be exceptional circumstances, which they would have to plead to the commission to allow them to expand their hours. And so far that hasn't happened. So let's cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. There being no one else being asked to speak. So someone like to introduce the ordinance? Would someone like to introduce the ordinance? It's been introduced. Please call the roll.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending Section 17-10, construction of large or complex projects, transportation and non-transportation, exemption for time to comply of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, by granting City Commission authorization to approve extensions for special permits beyond the authorization of the city manager, providing for conflicts and repeal, and providing for an effective date. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and ordinance is approved on first reading. OSR 1. This is a second reading. Ordinance amending City of Fort Lauderdale Unified Land Development Regulations with regard to airport and heliport, helistop zoning regulations. We have one person who's signed to speak, but I think just here to answer questions. Stephanie Toothaker, are you back in town? Anyway.
Hi, Mayor. Yes, I'm back in town. Thank you. I did sign up to speak on this item.
Okay. Anyone have any questions with regard to this ordinance? Hearing none, would someone like to introduce the ordinance? Hello?
I think, Mayor, she wants to.
Yeah, Stephanie wants to speak. We do need to discuss an issue. Do we introduce? I said Stephanie does want to speak.
Oh, did you want to speak? I didn't hear that.
Yes, I do, Mayor. Thank you so much. I would like to just ask a few questions if possible.
Okay, sure. You have 3 minutes.
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this item. And I want to thank city staff and the city attorney's office, because I know we've been at this for a long time. I believe I have brought to your attention that at the Inter-Miami CF Stadium at Lockhart Park, it is our intention to host and hold within the stadium a sports management school. I objected to the ordinance at the Planning and Zoning Board, not because I object to the ordinance, but because I just wanted to ensure that school would be a permitted use at the stadium. And I know staff worked on some language that seemed to indicate that school would be a permitted use, but I apologize for raising this at the last second, but I just am really struggling with the language and understanding how a school is a permitted use, not only here at the stadium, but generally in this area. I think it was staff tried to kind of fit it in sideways as an accessory use, but the way I'm reading the language, it does not appear that the school that exceeds 2,500 square feet would be permitted, and I just am asking for clarification of that.
Anthony Fajardo, are you?
Yeah, I can speak to it first, and then
the city attorney.
Yeah, the school aspect of it really only pertains to the DNL area, which is the decibel area, which is created through a noise study that's required under Chapter 333. And if you look, I don't have the map in front of me, but if you look at the map, it doesn't encompass the Inter-Miami area. So from that standpoint, our review of it, there would be no impact. If it were impacting beyond that DNL area, we have language in there, we believe, as an accessory use. Again, the primary use of the Inter-Miami site is obviously not a school. So it would be a secondary or an accessory use that we believe would still fall under that. So we don't believe that would be a bar in any way, shape, or form. We can't extrapolate school out of it because it's part of the FXC study, and under 14 CFR 150, Part 150, we have to have the results of that noise study within our ordinance, so we can't extrapolate anything out of that. But from what we can tell on the map, and again, I don't have it, but it's the DNL area does not go and encroach upon Inter-Miami.
Mayor, may I ask another question?
Please go ahead.
So, Alan, my concern is that school or educational facility is not listed in these zoning categories, not listed as either a primary permitted use or an accessory use that's permitted. It's just not listed at all. And
Correct.
Then where it does say accessory use, it's limited to 2,500 square feet. And we do fall in these zoning categories. So I don't maybe I'm just not reading it clearly, but I don't see where it's only limited to uses that are within the DNL area. I do see education facility called out in the DNL, but I don't see where the use would actually be permitted.
Well, in the DNL, it would be prohibited. In the I think it's GS, I can't remember the acronym, but the other section of it, we do see it as an accessory use. Your building may not be 2,500. It's obviously bigger than that, but your primary building, unless you're planning on building a separate school, and I don't know if that's the intent, I'm not aware of that. But if you're using your existing facilities, then I don't believe that would apply because the primary use for your existing facility is not a school.
I'm struggling, Alan, because that's just not how I read it. Maybe it's just not clear to me.
Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of, we don't have room really to, we don't have much wiggle room with that under Chapter 333. Those are the standards the state imposes on us.
I respect that, and I understand that that the city's been trying to pass this for a while, but I feel like the language could perhaps be. I think the attempt is there to permit some educational uses, not only the one at the stadium, but I believe there was a discussion about another school that I think would be appropriate for the area. And I just feel like the language could be clearer if we're trying to ensure that these accessory uses would be permitted, because the way I read them, they're not called out, they're not permitted, and if they're accessory, they have to be less than 2,500 square feet. And I apologize, I know that we've been trying to do this for some time, but that is how I read it. And if I am reading it that way, I think it's open to interpretation. And I just would prefer there just be a little bit deeper dive into making that clear, if that's possible.
Right. You, as Mr. Fajardo correctly points out, if you read further, you can ask the Aviation Advisory Board for an extension of those requirements with our square footage. So it's capable of being in there.
And that just.
Yeah, why can't they ask the commission for that? Why does it need to go to the Aviation Advisory Board?
Because that's what's required under the statute. Again, we're crafting this pursuant to what's required under Chapter 333. We're sort of now, if we do something, we have to go to FDOT and we have to go to FAA. Here, it's just FAA and city. So we have to adopt certain standards on the Florida statutes in order for us to comply with what's required. So
I mean, I wouldn't want the Aviation Advisory Board to be able to block something that the commission wants.
Well, unfortunately, that's what state statute require, but.
They're just an advisory.
Right.
I know, but they have to approve it if it's above.
If they don't approve it, it still comes to us anyway.
If they don't approve it, does it come to us to possibly approve it? I wouldn't want to be blocked by
There's an appeal process.
Same appeal process,
but it does need to go to them first.
I mean, I'm happy to have it go to them as long as it can come to us next.
Let's just be clear on
that. I don't want it to end there.
No, nothing. They're just an advisory board.
It wasn't.
Let's confirm just before we assume
go
that
to them.
the appeal is to the city.
Mayor,
Yeah,
Yes.
is this time sensitive? Do we have time to perhaps let these folks work this out? I'm reading, the Planning and Zoning Board denied this 7-2. There just seems to be a question. I mean, is this time sensitive, or can Alan and Stephanie and anyone else, Commissioner Moritas in her district, can they continue to meet, or do we have to do this evening?
Well, it is time sensitive because it's overdue by about 2 years.
So what's another 2 weeks?
Well, there's a variety of reasons. We've also sort of gone through this issue, but
yeah, and Commissioner,
and the reason it was denied at planning and zoning is because Ms. Toothaker made the same objection at that meeting.
Yeah. Or Vice Mayor, I would like to hash out the objections that Ms. Toothaker has so that I understand them. Even if we do end up deferring this item tonight, I really want to kind of go through item by item, like what is the problem so that we can see if we need to defer it and work it out a little further. It's like I said, even just something as simple as this, like who has the authority ultimately. I don't understand enough, so I appreciate it was a little bit of a dialogue.
Of course.
Just to try and clarify, Anthony Fajardo, just to try and clarify the appeal process.
Speak in the microphone.
I'm sorry, can you hear me better?
Much better.
Anthony Fajardo, regarding the appeal process, it says it's subject to a site plan level 3. So it would go to the airport advisory board. If they wanted to appeal it, it would go to planning and zoning board, the way I read it. If the planning and zoning board didn't agree with them, there's still an appeal to the city commission through that process. So it could eventually get in front of the city commission if they wanted to exhaust their appeals through that process.
Okay. That helps. Stephanie, I don't know if that clarified anything. The 2,500 square foot on the building or the use, I guess, for a school, is that something we are coming up with, or is that something that the state is saying it can't be bigger than that?
I believe that's based on state.
So that's the largest.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
The largest amount of space. Okay. I know we've had this conversation a little bit before with staff. I just want to make sure we are not coming up with regulations that would restrict us on anything we may want to do at this space. We are still obviously exploring uses and options for the 20-acre park. At this point, really the community center, and we have talked about some career technical possibilities. I don't know if it would necessarily be a school. What is the definition of a school, I guess, in broad terms? Let's say it's a droning career technical program. Is that a school? I mean, what is a school? Is it adult ed? Is it everything? Does it change based on who the group of students we are serving?
I don't know how you define it, but I know it when I see it.
Well,
I believe it's defined under Florida statutes, but I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah, it is also defined by our ULDR in 4735. I could read it to you if you like.
Well, I guess all the uses I'm talking about, like training students for career technical opportunities, it sounds like that would all be considered a school. That's probably really where I'm really getting to this. But and I also read that if it had a use kind of related to the airport, then that's excluded, right? Or it doesn't, that is permitted, I guess.
I'm sorry?
If the use of the training facility has an airport purpose, like training somebody in a field that the airport needs that, then is that excluded?
Well, it's tough to do hypotheticals because there's a lot of factors that come into it. And again, we don't regulate necessarily the requirements. That's by state. So it's kind of hard to answer hypotheticals. We really can't, again, deviate from what the state requires as to whether in the future it's going to fit whatever particular use we have. Again, with regards to the prohibition that we're dealing with the DNL area, that's definitely a prohibition, but that doesn't encroach any of the areas we're talking about.
Well, I don't think it encroaches on Inner Miami's area, but it's probably right in the area.
It doesn't touch ours.
It doesn't touch the 20-acre park either.
No, it does not.
Okay. Like I said, it's probably a little bit more technical than I have asked the question a few times. You know, is this ordinance going to be more restrictive than what the FAA would require? And, you know, staff, you all have said no, you know, that it is not more restrictive. We're not prohibiting something that the FAA would approve. You know, we're not doing that. So, Stephanie, what are your thoughts?
Commissioner, I remain uncomfortable with the ordinance, but I know staff and the city attorney's office has tried to accommodate. I don't read it the way it's being explained. My fear is that when we come in, is we still have to go through approvals for the school. which well exceeds 2,500 square feet. And it's not listed as a permitted use. It's not listed as a permissible accessory use. It exceeds the 2,500 square feet that any accessory use has to fall under. And I just don't have clarity on understanding how that can be interpreted to be permitted. My preference would be to work with the city attorney's office and staff again over the next 2 weeks, but I defer to you as a district commissioner.
Alan, is this something that you could just go over, maybe spend a little bit more time with Ms. Toothaker?
We can push it another 2 weeks and go back and try to provide Ms. Toothaker some clarity.
Okay, and Stephanie, I mean, I hope that's enough time to go over, some of your concerns and address them. So I would support, you giving a little bit more input for 2 weeks, and then this would be the last item that we really discuss again when it comes back. So
there's a motion on the floor to defer this item till our next meeting, which would be March 2nd.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
yes.
Vice Mayor Glassman,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the item is deferred to May 2nd.
Thank
March.
March.
By then, thank you, Ms. Toothaker, and I appreciate you taking the time to help make clarifications that we need in order to make an informed decision here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that being the last item on the agenda, but I do believe that the city attorney has something he'd like to say.
I was making notes on that last item. I do have a request from the City Commission. I need your counsel on the chapter 286.011 on a matter of Lily Frusciante versus the City of Fort Lauderdale. It is a tort case that we have, and I'd like to schedule that for the next meeting, March 2nd. We probably need about 20 minutes, no more than that.
Okay, so a special closed door meeting to be after the conference meeting. And anything else?
I've got a few items.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Thanks. Because we didn't have a whole lot of time this afternoon I just want to just get a few updates from probably Chris is going to be most of this stuff, Mayor.
Yep.
Thanks. Let's see. Federal courthouse, Chris, I think, everything seems to be moving along. They're working on site plans and we're looking at utilities and relocating. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know that it's that straightforward, but it's close. We're learning about the federal process as it seems to change frequently, or at least they're offering up different processes along the way. So nothing's off track, but it has changed a little bit, but the end game will still be the same.
Okay. And remind me where we are with EMS substation on Federal.
The next thing that would happen with the EMS substation on Federal is design of that facility.
Okay. And when is that starting?
We have funding identified and in place, so it will start later this spring. I don't know that we necessarily issue a task order to have it done, or if we have to compete it, I'll have to look at that. But the funding's in place to do the design.
Okay, great. What's next with Joint Campus?
Hopefully we'll meet as the UDPA. We're still solidifying that date, but I'd ask you all to look at March the 9th. March the 9th, it's not a day that we normally meet, but it is a date that has floated out there by Broward County that they would do a time certain UDPA meeting. There would be one agenda item to approve release of the solicitation for the private partner. So it should be a very fast UDPA meeting. I'm just waiting on confirmation before we move forward, but March the 9th.
Okay. Thanks. 5 Ash.
Yeah, update on 5 Ash is that we're still moving forward with the process of having an owner's rep if we decide to build 5 Ash ourselves. And as you're aware, we're in receipt of an unsolicited proposal for 5 Ash that is being reviewed, and I can't publicly talk more about that.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, bridge tunnel possibility. I think you're going to meet with some folks.
Right. As I indicated at our last meeting, there will be a group who is traveling to Las Vegas. Actually, we're leaving tomorrow, and we're going to be seeing a tunnel that they built there in the outside of the outskirts of Las Vegas. And we'll then be going to LA to see another tunnel that was built. And with the group will be myself, Chris Lagerbloom, my chief of staff. Also accompanying us will be Mayor Suarez from Miami, his chief of staff, and another assistant. And Mayor Udine, Vice Mayor Udine from the county will be coming with us, as well as their staff person in charge of tunnels and railroads, and also representatives of FEC Railroad and their construction manager and technical engineer will also be accompanying us. So this group will be meeting with the Las Vegas folks. When I say the Las Vegas folks, I mean the CEO of the boring company, and those meetings have been set up for the next few days. And so when I return, I'll be happy to make a report and explain to you what we discovered.
Mayor, you travel with quite an entourage.
I never go alone.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Very popular.
Commissioner Sorensen, you should see his luggage.
Yeah. I bet. He's got to have all these handlers.
Luggage.
To take care of them.
Luggage.
Lot of luggage. Let's see. Alan, Bahia Mar, what happens between now and when we're having the conference meeting? Are you still reviewing stuff, or what happens in the interim?
Our review continues. Since it's scheduled relatively soon, we'll ramp up whatever we can do to finish reviewing by then and have what we have, to be able to explain to you what we can. I mean, obviously, we're not proposing it. We're just going to be answering your questions, trying to explain it from my perspective. But we're just going to continue reviewing at this point.
And what's our spend rate on the outside counsel? I think it's Weiss Sirota.
I think it's a total of $4,600. I think it is so far.
Total,
but I don't know if we have an invoice that's pending that we haven't paid yet, but paid thus far, I think it's $4,600.
And I think $150,000 was allocated. Is that to Weiss Sirota broadly?
Just to Weiss Sirota for that for general real estate matters. So that way, when that money, even though that money is budgeted, we open advise how much we're spending. So it gives me a little time through all other issues I may need him for before coming back to you.
Okay. And it sounds like you don't expect a significant increase in spend on that, do you? In the near term?
You mean in general or regarding Bahia Mar?
Bahia Mar.
Depends what you all decide to do.
But prior to that decision?
Prior to that, no. Well, there's probably, because we're going to have to ramp up. So there'll be some expenditure increase between now and that time for the meeting, because we'll have to get geared up to be able to answer all your questions.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks. Chris, this might be for Raj. South Ocean Drive Bridge update, and then Tarpon River dredging update, please.
Those would both be Raj.
And those are the last two questions I have, Mayor. Thank you.
One might be Ben Rogers, the South Ocean Bridge, but we'll come up with updates for you here. We'll start with Raj. Talk Tarpon.
Good evening, Commissioner Sorensen. Regarding the bridge, we are still on target for the construction to start pending the funding we receive from the county. I believe the meeting has been set up with the county folks either this week, I'm not sure, or next week. And as soon as we find out what the status is, we are going to proceed. But except for that decision, we are pretty much ready to roll, with our The bid documents are complete, and as soon as we identify the funding source, whether it's going to be us or the county, we would immediately roll out the bids. And regarding the Tarpon Spring, we submitted, or the consultant submitted the permit application 2 weeks ago. We are following up with Broward County and DEP. They have not given a fixed timeline, but they said that they are going to work with the city to expedite. Army Corps of Engineers is about 30 days. We are expected to hear back from them. So unless we encounter some unforeseen circumstance or conditions, we are still on target for the end of April of this year. So that's the two updates I have. And maybe Ben Rogers might want to add something. I see his.
Maybe after these next couple of days, we'll do a tunnel instead of a bridge.
Exactly.
Good.
Be cheaper.
Right.
And eliminate a fixed bridge.
Exactly. All right. I don't know if Ben Rod. Oh, okay.
Yes. I was editorializing as he was walking to the podium.
I was looking for the mayor to do the walking across the room for me.
I was completely distracted by the news that the city manager was telling us. We're going to tunnel all the bridges in Florida.
Well, good afternoon. Good evening, Ben Rogers, Transportation Mobility. To add to Raj's context on the South Ocean Bridge Drive, we've been back and forth with the county on our Surtax application. There's certain elements in our package right now that are not approved. Decorative elements, relocating utilities, things of that nature. So we're negotiating with them. We're updating our scope, and once we get that finalized, then we can go through the project financial agreement with the county and receive the funding.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Mayor. That's it.
Okay, very good. Any other commissioners have any other questions or comments they'd like to make before we conclude tonight? Okay, there being none, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.